here we go.
On today's Prairie Sportsman, we head to Blue Mound State Park to learn about Action Track chairs.
One is going to be your slow speed.
A chair that helps people with mobility issues explore the park.
No, this is great.
Then we check out 21 Roots Farm, a nonprofit that's connecting people with developmental disabilities to the outdoors and agriculture.
They say if you build it, they will come. It's happened. It's true.
Finally, Nicole Zempel shows us the upside of nettles.
They're one of the most iron-rich plants on the planet.
Welcome to Prairie Sportsman. I'm Brett Amundsen. We got a great show for you this week, and it starts right now.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org.
Welcome to Blue Mound State Park here near Laverne, Minnesota. In the winter, you may not think of visiting state parks this time of year, but there's actually a lot you can do, from hiking and snowshoeing, checking out the bison herd while you're here, maybe bird watching, things like that. And in recent years, there's been a lot of funding devoted to getting more people into the outdoors all year round, including helping those with mobility issues. The goal of walking through a state park is to really immerse you in nature. That means it's not always easy to get around. So you'll see little things like this bridge, for example, to help you navigate some of the terrain. But there's a company in Marshall, Minnesota that produces a product that is now featured in a number of state parks around the state to help people get around these beautiful areas. Action Track Chair makes an all-terrain electric-powered chair and helps those with a need explore areas that aren't suitable for regular wheelchairs. Now, Chris, I know you don't get a lot of people using these chairs in the winter, but it's Minnesota, so we're going to take it out in the snow, see how it does.
Yeah.
And, check out the park a little bit. Let's see how this thing operates.
Sounds great. You can see right now you're on 3, so you can toggle that up and down with the blue buttons. 1 is going to be your slow speed, up to 5.
Okay.
There is a horn. That doesn't really give a lot of attention, but you can do that. This is going to run just like the video game at home as far as steering you. You can see right and left here and forward.
I'm not sure people have Ataris anymore.
Yeah, sorry. Nintendo, what do we got? I don't know. Switches. Anyway, there is a headlight. This time of day, you're not going to need it. If you're out late at night, it does give you some light right out of here. That toggle switch over there on your left is going to adjust your chair tip.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. From there, yep. I'll let you maneuver around the truck and around the van, and we'll head over to a little slope, and so you can get some practice on going up and down a slope.
Okay.
And as you feel comfortable, you can adjust your speed up to 5.
This is really the beauty of these chairs, is they're meant to be able to take people into, I mean, you're not going to go rock climbing in this thing, but you're going to be able to go over some different terrain. So we're going to try taking it through a few inches of snow here. He said 6 to 8 inches of snow it's supposed to go through.
Correct, yep.
So here we go.
This is all about increasing access for people to get outdoors in places they couldn't before.
No, this is great. I feel like this would just be a fun way to get around the park anyway. All right, so I passed the obstacle course, but you got a path. You want to hop on and take us down this path right here?
Sure, we can
show
do
us a
that.
little bit more of the park.
Yep, you bet. The Park was established in 1937. It was actually first called Mound Spring Recreation Area. It was the landscape you see right behind me. It was just a few acres on either side of Mound Creek. It was a WPA project to bring water recreation to a place that didn't have any. They built a dam that constructed about a 20-acre impoundment, made a lake in this area. And then upstream a little ways, there's a dam that's still currently standing that made a second lake. In 1960, a small acreage of prairie came up for sale, and the city of Luverne approached St. Paul and asked them to purchase it and establish a bison herd, and at that time, they also changed it to Blue Mound State Park. The area is an uprising of Sioux quartzite that on the horizon looks blue at a distance. So it was a prominent landscape mark as people were crossing the prairie. You could see this mound of quartzite from a long distance away that looked blue on the horizon.
So you guys have had these chairs for a couple of years now?
Yeah, let's see, we got this chair in 23. Part of the Get Outdoor More funding initiative that Minnesota had to increase outdoor access. Been pretty popular. This trail we're heading down right now is the Mound Creek Trail Loop. It's part of our hiking club trail system, and so a trail user can actually pick up the hiking club trail and get the password and participate in the hiking club program using the track chairs. We've got 14 miles of trails, and we've actually checked every trail and have a map that shows which trails are safe to operate on. There's a few that absolutely aren't safe to operate on. So we'll show you which trails you cannot use it on and point you in the right direction that way. There's no cost to reserve them. You do need your state park vehicle permit, but beyond that, there's no cost. You can reserve it ahead of time, and we strongly recommend that you do. So you can see prairie, it's 1% of our landscape that used to cover all of Minnesota, or a good chunk of Minnesota is left, so there's tall grass prairie here. Beyond that, rock climbing, there's Sioux quartzite is the bedrock here. Up where we are on the north end of the park, there's about a 30-foot cliff, but as you work your way south, the cliff line is almost 90 feet high. Some of the best rock climbing in southern Minnesota. Excellent hiking. There's 14 miles of trails. There's a bicycle trail that you can ride through the park and then connect to a trail that leads you into the town of Luverne nearby. There's birding opportunities. We actually have bald eagles that roost here almost year-round. Mound Creek typically doesn't freeze entirely, and so they tend to roost. Compared to a lot of Minnesota, our winters are pretty mellow, and so there's, I think, some pretty good winter recreation here. There's climbers that climb here all winter long. We do have snowshoe opportunities. There's a snowmobile trail that runs through the park. We've got a bison herd, and so you get a chance to see bison. We actually offer tours, so you can get on a truck and take bison tours out on the prairie landscape.
So how many bison do you have out here?
We've got 67 this winter. We try to winter right around 65. Our bison are as close to being free of cattle genetics as any in the country. Our current breeding bull right now has Yellowstone genetics. Those are really rare genetics around the country. And so we're excited to have those. Our herd is really, really strong with those genetics right now, and we're working on introducing Theodore Roosevelt genetics into this herd. Bison, especially, are patchwork grazers as approach. Cattle will, graze a piece of ground immediately and graze it off entirely, where bison will move on a land. So they'll eat a little bit and they'll move on, and they won't graze a whole piece off. As they graze, they really stir that land up, and so they're really good for a prairie landscape. So we do have winter camping. We don't plow out campsites. We don't get overly busy in the winter, but if the interstate's running, we do get some campers. There's parks holding their candlelight events right now, and if you see a park is having one, find out if that park has a tractor available, because you could be using it for that. We haven't had a lot of use of it in the winter. We've got a great opportunity this winter. You know, you get too deep and they won't operate in that deeper snow, but we've got just the right level of snow right now. So if people see this and they get an opportunity, please come out and use it. It's just a nice place to be.
And this is our barn, and then we have our goats and alpacas over here.
And it also helps with healthy blood sugar and healthy blood pressure. And it tastes very, very, very good.
Here at the farm, like working here with animals, this actually helps me to be more good employee. I really love my job working here, and I really like sharing about my experience. That is my dream about working here, like full-time job.
At 21 Roots Farm in Graham, Minnesota, Molly tends to the goats, chickens, and alpacas. She grows beans, tomatoes, and a variety of other produce that is packaged and sold to customers. Like many of her farmer friends, Molly was born with an extra copy of chromosome 21, a genetic condition known as Down syndrome. All the farmers at the nonprofit have some type of developmental disability, and 21 Roots provides them with meaningful work as they develop life skills. The farm's co-founders, Brittany Watala and Amy Peterson, started dreaming about a joint venture while they worked together at a camp for youth with autism.
It was just kind of this idea of something to do and be able to serve and work with people with developmental disabilities. We didn't set out to start a farm, but it kind of evolved just kind of naturally. I grew up in a dairy community in central Wisconsin, and so I always knew where my food came from. Amy has this passion for animals and just like their therapeutic benefit. So we kind of put it together, and it was like, it kind of sounds like a farm. Working at a group home, I kind of realized people didn't have choice in what they ate, let alone knowledge of where their food came from. And then kind of the tasks that people were employed to do just weren't very meaningful, and so they weren't motivated. And so we kind of thought, yeah, is there an opportunity to make meaningful work and get to eat the fruits of your labor? And so we're doing it.
After forming a nonprofit in 2019, Amy and Brittany purchased the 21-acre farm and started a youth club.
I was working for a family that had adopted 3 kids with Down syndrome. They were young, and so that was kind of the pool we had, and then kind of did a separate adult program as we were like starting out and not knowing where. They say if you build it, they will come, and so it's happened. It's true. We had to start somewhere, and so we had like maybe 12 chickens. They were all free ranging in the orchard. We had 2 goats, and it was one of those things where we were like, oh shoot, the goats are coming, and we had to like run to Fleet Farm and buy everything that said goats, and like they came the next day, and that was kind of it. Chickens and a couple goats. We started and it was very simple. We kind of just threw out some programming to see what would stick with families. We had porta potties. We didn't even have chairs. We didn't really have a lot of money. So we rented a couple things, rented some chairs, and we just launched some programming.
Today, adults with disabilities work at the farm year-round, 3 days a week. Farmer Molly showed us around last summer.
Okay, right this way.
And Molly comes in and she's just ready to go. She gives me the energy that I need sometimes to just get ready, because it's like, well, Molly's gonna be here and she's gonna make me work. She's amazing. I love her.
And then here's our apple trees and pear trees. This is a chicken tractor. This is where they have food and water and eggs for chicken chores, just like give them water and give them food. These lovely girls are so nice. You can lay like 1 egg per day. We do have like different colors of eggs. Okay, let's now work our way down. This is one of the beehives because we have 2 beehives. And this is our barn. This is where our donkeys are. Their names are Izzy and Dolly. And then we have our goats and alpacas over here. Come here, girls. They're really nice. They do have names. Just like there's like a crowd of goats just like coming like around me sometimes because I am the goat whisperer.
I lead the animal time, and so it's usually a very intentional animal project that happens to be maybe mixing feed or trimming goats' hooves, or sometimes it's just spending time with the animals and getting them used to people and being handled. And it may be just, hey, we're gonna put some grain in the back of the barn and see which cows come in to see who is comfortable with us. We will go outside, rain or shine, cold or snowy or sunny and hot, depending on how hot and how cold and snowy. We tell everyone that they're farmers. Like I'm a farmer and our program participants, they are farmers. So everyone's a farmer and farmers have to work in rain or shine. We're looking for frozen chicken waters. We're, thawing things out sometimes. We are going on snowshoe walks instead of nature walks. We have beef cows. We've raised just a few for beef, and we usually just use it as like a kind of a fundraising thing. It's not like we're raising beef every single year. Our programs, we do charge for that, so those offset the cost of operations. Hiring some more staff, that sometimes just gets higher in costs, so then we have to fill in for some fundraising.
The property came with a pole barn that's been remodeled to include a kitchen, tower gardens named after the farmers' favorite celebrities, and community space where farmers package produce for their customers.
Remember, if you see really giant beans, we want to give them.
Yep, to the cows.
We'll give them to the cows. See, look at these ones.
While farmers bag up goods, Molly shows us where the food is grown.
This is our garden. This is where we planted carrots and beets and onions and some beans as well. And this is kind of like different kinds of beans. There's like rattlesnake beans. Rattlesnake beans are kind of like rattlesnakes, kind of like really curly. These are all the cabbages we have. We do have like purple cauliflower and green cauliflower. It's so good. So this is where our tomatoes are, sweet tomatoes. And this is actually helps that it tastes really good, make us healthy bones, make it more healthier, for us to eat more. This is all of our herbs. We do have mint down there and cilantro. I like to grow my own food a lot sometimes because it's just like awesome for me to eat them for dinners and stuff.
After produce boxes are packed, farmers write notes of thanks that are emailed to customers.
My favorite experience of this week was picking zucchini. We loaded them on the golf cart. I want to thank you for giving you meals.
Great. And then we'll send it off.
And we will sign off.
As far as products year-round, we have eggs that we sell. We do our honey, and we tap our maple trees, so we do maple syrup as well.
Nice work, Katie.
Farmers also craft items to sell.
Are you guys all working hard? She's working hard.
Last year, we kind of has been experimenting with making some dryer balls from our alpaca and sheep wool. And so we'll process that fiber with our farmers, and that's a very long, tedious process, but it's really fun.
Teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work.
And then we'll also do some soap making, we'll do some crafty type things. We'll maybe do a pop-up little market that's like seasonal, or we do a big winter market every December.
"21 Roots Farm primarily serves young adults, but the nonprofit continues to welcome up to 15 kids for 3-hour summer sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
they're kind of just getting used to the farm and just seeing like, is this something they'd be interested in as adults? I think, you know, those younger exposures kind of have guided me in my life, so I think the same with our youth. I think a big next step for us is that employment program, and just like, you know, we've been able to see our adult farmers become experts here on the farm and really take ownership in whatever area that they are interested in. I often look at myself as like, I'm a guide, and so I'm not really like leading or directing, I'm kind of guiding, and then whatever's supposed to happen, happens. We had this guy who's in his 30s, and we get like a sheet of paper that says, you know, he's dreamt of being a farmer his whole life. So I'm immediately jazzed, and I'm like, yes, we're gonna get a job at a farm down the road. This is gonna be awesome. And we meet him, and he's like the slowest moving guy, and every speck of hay he's picking off. And so I was like, maybe not the idea of the farmer that I had in my mind, so like, bring it back. And so I watched him, and he was at the fence line, and he's telling everyone, be nice to the cows, be nice to the cows. And so then I thought, what if he did showmanship? And so we were able to like work with a steer, and he trained the steer. And I think his like attention to detail and needing everything to be clean got to shine, because he's, you know, has to make sure every speck of hay is off of his prize show steer.
21 Roots Farm held a fair so the young man could show off his skills.
So he got to show his family the grooming process. And so he got the cow into the chute, did everything that was necessary. We're all in tears because it just like all came together. And you know, his mom sat back and said, he won't even put his dishes in the dishwasher when he's at my house. How did you get him to do this? But being able to just see that independence and that confidence that he had, and it kind of all came together in that moment, and it was beautiful.
After a day of witnessing the pride 21 Roots farmers take in caring for their animals and packaging the fruits of their labor, Molly bid us a fond farewell.
Thank you everyone for your support and everything that we can do. And one of my teachers are fun, and they really like me a lot. And thank you so much, and have a good day.
We are standing by the nettle plant. The scientific name, which of course I can't pronounce, but it means to burn. But the nettle plant is either completely loved and adored, or it's one people don't want to get close to at all. I am encouraging you to get to know this nettle plant, get close to it. You will get food, you will get medicine, vitamins, minerals. Why people don't particularly love the nettle plant or get to know it is because, again, that scientific name meaning to burn. But if you know how to handle the plant, it will not burn or sting you at all. Now, the reason people say it stings is because the underside of the leaves and the stem have all kinds of little teeny tiny hair-like structures that are actually kind of like hollow needles. There's a few different things in there. One of them is folic acid. So when you break the tip of the stem, it does kind of inject that just under your skin, which will give you swelling, welts, maybe some rashes, and that itchy, burny feeling. But that doesn't have to happen. There's a plant that naturally just happens to grow nearby the nettle plant, which I find amazing. It is burdock, and the greens of the burdock plant will actually alleviate some of that stinging or swelling. So if you handle the nettle plant and you just go in an upward fashion, all those little stingy bits are not stinging me at all. I encourage everybody, do a simple search on the stinging nettle plant. You're gonna get lists of medicinal uses and histories. Same with the nutritional. What I find it super useful for, I have been anemic in my life, and I was placed on iron pills. Well, years later now, I've done research, and I consume an awful lot of nettles because they are one of the most iron-rich plants on the planet. I also have allergies, and they are fantastic in helping to treat like the symptoms of allergies. You can make a nettle tea, or you can even just bring some water to a boil and inhale the nettle plant. One of the most nutrient-rich plants literally on the entire planet. Helps with so many different things. If you're into making natural plant dyes, nettle plants at different stages will give you different color dyes. I personally love to harvest nettles also for eating when they're younger, maybe 1 to 2 inches, and their leaves look a little bit purple, which when you go to create the dye, you're gonna get kind of a rich purpley pinky shade of dye. As they grow, like these here, it's gonna be more in the green and gold area. And something that I recently learned from one of my friends who is very interested in just outdoor skills, taught me how to make cordage from the nettle plant. It's simple, it is time consuming. This is kind of what a finished nettle cordage rope looks like. It's very strong and you can use it just like you would any other kind of rope. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna set it on a hard surface. I'm also gonna remove the leaves, and I'm just basically going to pulverize, gently though, the whole stem, and it's gonna turn kind of moist and kind of stringy. Give it a good, gentle mashing, and when you feel like you've got it where the skin, the outer skin, easily separates, you're just going to peel those outer layers, and that will give you pieces then that look like this. And then you can start braiding. Something else too I'd like to say about the nettle plant, all of the nutrients create antioxidants in your body, and that's gonna help fight against all sorts of free radicals that we take in. And it also helps with healthy blood sugar and healthy blood pressure levels. And it tastes very, very, very good. Also, people wonder, how can I cook with these wild things? I call them dumping grounds, but maybe that doesn't sound so appealing. Omelets are a great way to throw any variety of wild greens and utilize. Soups are a fantastic way. Also, just mixed wild green salads. The nettle plant, you will want to boil down a little bit, but it has the flavor of spinach. It's very, very good. But mixed wild green salads, an easy way to kind of balance all the different flavors coming at you is with feta cheese and balsamic vinaigrette. So, little tip for you. I hope you get to love the nettle plant and utilize it as much as I do.
Funding for Prairie Sportsmen is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org.